Trump campaign, who was asked today whether the campaign is going to try to push legislatures in swing states to overturn the will of the people. I mean, it's a quite stunning proposition, but let's take a listen.
To what extent, I'm curious, do you think the campaign will go? Will it go to those state legislators?
Well, that's a possibility. Look, we've obviously been putting forward lawsuits across the country in states where we feel like there were really egregious violations of people's rights and the way this election process played out. And we're open to anything.
Sir, we have played that soundbite twice in the last 7 minutes because it is so stunning. What is your reaction to that?
Well, obviously, the Trump campaign is still in their own reality. The legislatures and their leaders in all of the critical states in Pennsylvania and Michigan have said that they are going to follow the law and certify Joe Biden. The laws in these states say that they need to recognize whoever wins the popular vote in the state. But it's just sad. We haven't seen this type of anti-democratic power grab ever in our country's history. I would argue it's worse than even what happened in 1876, and historians have studied that election. So it's just embarrassing, sad, but it's not going to work.
Let's talk about the Hill reports. The Democrats are starting to dig into their oversight toolbox and warn that Trump's post-election actions are a fundamental threat to democracy. What, sir, is your committee doing to help the presidential transition process begin? I mean, what is it going to take to get the current president to concede to the president-elect?
Well, we're doing what we can. We just sent a letter to the GSA administrator. We're open to calling her before our committee. But the real issue that's going to get the president to concede is to have some Republicans on the Hill, senators and members of Congress, go to him and say, enough is enough. And you've had only 5 senators so far acknowledging his victory, very few members of the House. You need basically 15, 20 members to go and talk to him. And that's really what will move this country forward. And I would hope they would do it for the sake of our democracy.
Congressman Khanna, are any members of the House at least privately telling you this president lost, it is time for him to move on?
Alex, honestly, no, because even the ones who feel that way would not feel comfortable sharing that with a Democratic colleague and having that be broadcast out. I mean, there is a real fear still of this president in his own party. There's a sense that he's going to stay around, that he's going to be active even leading up to the 2024 election. And so no one wants to cross him still. I have not seen, I thought after he lost, there would be a lifting of fear on the Republican side. So far, I have not seen that.
As President-elect Joe Biden is preparing to take office in, 59 days now, I know that your progressive Democratic colleagues are pushing him to commit to those causes that helped him win the Oval Office. Let's take a listen to that.
We got to do bold. We got to do change that happens now. We got to make sure that black folks, brown folks, every marginalized group, our indigenous folks feel our change.
That's what our next move is to make sure that the Biden administration keeps its promise, kept its promise to young people, kept its promise to the movement for Black lives.
What is more basic than fighting for clean water? What is more basic than fighting for a breathable planet?
And you, sir, were at that news conference, I should point out. Among your colleagues, do you anticipate the president-elect to heed this call, or do you see this becoming a larger issue for him?
I do think he will heed the call. I think he knows that young people were critical to his election. He knows that Black Lives Matter were critical to his election, that there was record turnout. Let's remember, Donald Trump got more votes than he got in 2016. It was the record turnout fueled by so many activist groups across this country that got us the White House. So I believe he will be bold starting out on increasing minimum wage, on climate change, on issues of racial justice. And certainly the coalition of young people who elected him believes that.
I want to ask you about what one of your colleagues there tweeted, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who said that there should be an archive of the people around President Trump, essentially to not forget those who have enabled this president. Do you agree?
Well, I think there should be accountability, but I also think that we need to start to bring this country together. That means, yes, let's have the rule of law followed and not let people off for violations of the law. But I think those of us who are in elective office, we have an obligation to say, how can we improve people's lives? How are we going to create jobs? How are we going to raise wages? How are we going to provide health care? How are we going to do things that can earn the trust of people who voted for Donald Trump and try to stitch this country back together?
Governors that are sounding the alarm as Congress remains deadlocked on another round of relief. Let's take a listen to what the governor of Kentucky told MSNBC.
If we don't get another CARES Act funding before the end of the year, everything we're doing to fight this virus falls off a cliff on December 31st. No more money for testing. No more money for contact tracing. No money to distribute this vaccine.
And let's add 12 million Americans could lose their jobless aid at the end of this year. Is Congress failing to act on this? I mean, do you have any confidence that your congressional colleagues can find a compromise and get Americans the help they need before it's too late?
Well, Alex, as you know, I was calling for a compromise before the election with 1.8, 1.9 trillion. Now, McConnell has been a block. He does not. He's saying that he won't bring these bills to the floor. He's adjourned the Senate until November 30th. So the question is, are we going to get the White House and McConnell to move? If we can get them to move, there is a sentiment that we have to get something done. But ultimately, the White House and McConnell have to be willing to move.
All right. California Congressman Khanna, a very safe and happy Thanksgiving to you and your loved ones. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.